Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast, the only live, local, politically conservative program in Kootenai County where we expose the political power players, politicians, and influencers. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. Throughout the program, we will be taking your phone calls. The number is 208-366-4671, scrolling right across the bottom of the screen if you didn't get that. If you do call in, I will put you in the queue, so you'll hang tight until we bring you up into the show. If you're watching live, please be sure to click the share button on whichever platform you're watching, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, X, or we welcome you on Instagram. And if you're listening back on our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can also participate all throughout the program by putting your comments and questions into the comment section. A reminder that opinions expressed are ours only and not necessarily that of any of our advertisers, sponsors, or affiliates. And now here's Dan.
Good evening. Well, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about, if you talk to people we don't consider to be part of our group, if they're the outcasts according to us, and you talk to them, well, you can't be our friend. You're not a real conservative. And it's a real problem. In this marketplace of ideas, if you truly believe in liberty without compromise, then you have discussions with all sorts of people, because how are you going to compel others to your viewpoint if you won't at least have a discussion? And how arrogant for those of you out there who want to restrict others talking or aligning with others when they are in the right. Well, what do you think happens when you become nothing more than a component of your own echo chamber? So we're going to have some great discussions about that tonight. Many of your accusations, some of your below the belt hits. Good thing that I've got balls of steel and I can take it. We're also going to talk about Lear Asset Management and their role in the KCRCC Town Hall debacle found on the Coeur d'Alene Police Department's report. So I'm looking forward to digging into that and breaking down a little more Sheriff Bob Norris and his inability to effect a legal arrest. So that's a little bit what we have planned for you tonight. I hope you have your open mind ready as we discuss all things liberty without compromise. Thank you so much for joining us, not only right here in Kootenai County, in the region, Eastern Washington, Western Montana, all the way down to our friends at the south end of this great state. Welcome. If you have a question, now is your chance to give us a call, give me a call, and you can take me to the train station, so to speak.
You already got somebody over on Instagram wanting to know what you thought of Trump's speech.
I have not watched Trump's speech yet.
Oh. I got one message from a friend that said, "What's up with Trump's teeth?"
I don't know, and I don't give a crap. Couldn't care less.
I don't know. Not making fun of it, just haven't watched it yet. So thought I'd put that one out there. And if you were really smart, based on what we were telling you last week, you're sitting here watching tonight with your midday square snack in hand. And the link to that for 15% off your midday squares, it's a healthy, functional chocolate bar.
A functional.
It's
an outstanding tasting.
They are delicious. So if you haven't gotten those snacks, the link for 15% off those is pinned to the top of the comments.
Highly recommend, and I don't like a lot of protein snack bars, so there you go.
It replaces when I was doing like the chocolate and peanut butter at night, and sometimes the one little tablespoon of peanut butter got to be excessive.
Excessive?
So over time, at least.
Can peanut butter ever be excessive?
No, probably not.
I don't believe that is the case. I'm certain that most of our friends out there also believe that peanut butter should not be regulated.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Second Amendment.
Yeah. We didn't, this wasn't planned. There were things were hopping a little bit on social media today. Some arguments going around. And there's one gal in particular who's been a common thread. She's popped up here and there through the beginning of our campaign. And was kind of like reactivated some interaction where it's always like one person removed. I'm going to comment on somebody else that's commenting on behalf of Dan Wilson and see who I can get wound up. And it's about the 1-year anniversary of the very first time I went to a women's luncheon for the Republican Women's Federated, whatever its big old long name, about almost exactly a year ago. And I know that they have their luncheon coming up again. But it reminded me of, and this part of the we're going for in this episode is, well, if you talk to them or you're friends with them, or you agree with what she or he has to say, well, I can't be your friend. This is an all in or all out kind of situation when you're talking politics. So you announce your run for sheriff, and I thought, well, I want to get to know people in the community who have volunteered in the Republican organization, hope to make some friendships and really understand the landscape and be involved. And so I went to the luncheon, sit down at a table, chatting with the ladies at my table, minding my own business. And I'm familiar with some of the faces by the time I get there. A table at the front had some reserved seating. So there was a lady named Terry Seymour.
No, not Terry.
Terry Seymour. Infamous Terry Seymour sitting at a reserved table in the front. And she was kind of all a flurry because she was sitting with Bob Norris, Sheriff Bob Norris, County Commissioner Bruce Matari. And then at that time, Dale Gibney, who was running for...
Sleepy Dale Gibney.
Who was running for County Commissioner seat, whatever, 1 or 2. And... so, yeah, I mean, I think she was having a good time. And again, like I said, I'm at the back of the room. Terry's at the front. I understand my position here. So I come in quietly and I observe. Terry's job was passing the mic. She's been seen often, I guess, either with a microphone.
She's the great mic keeper.
With a microphone or ripping microphones out of people's hands. She was doing that at this luncheon as the candidates were introducing themselves around the table. So she's kind of having fun with that. They all sit down. It's right before they serve us lunch. She turns around in her chair, and from across the room, again, she's at a table in the front, I'm at a table in the back. And these guys, they know who I am now because you made your announcement for sheriff, and they weren't having any of it.
Oh, yeah.
So she turns around backwards in her chair, flashes me a smile across the room, and then she blows me a kiss.
Oh, really?
Blows me a kiss across her.
Well, maybe she loves you in Jesus.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're willing to know. Like, well, I still it haunts me to this day.
Well,
I want to know what that meant, Terry.
Terry, of course, works. She's the darling of the KCRCC, and she came to all of my campaign events. So convinced. Number one, Terry, there's a great book called #for_Dummies. And you and Nina may want to look that up, but she came spun up to several of my meet and greets because I dared to hashtag Democrat, LBGTQ, gay.
I think you got that back. You got that all out of order.
What do you mean? Huh?
I don't know. You're good.
Anyway, so hashtag, get your message out to all sorts of audiences. And they were just convinced that because I use that hashtag, in fact, we're going to have to pull that video where Terry, she actually asked, well, you hashtag these things. Are you supporting drag shows? Are you supporting porn in the libraries? And so she was from day one, very, very whipped up. And of course, she also works for Russ Fulcher. But Terry was on the vetting committee.
Yes.
That got to recommend candidates to the voting block right before the primary.
Yeah, she in one comment today, there a little bit of a back and forth, keeping it respectful.
What was this in?
Idaho North Idaho Freedom Fighters Facebook group.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember now what even started. Well, it was the exchange of the topic tonight. If we post a video that has Dan Gookin in it, meaning Terry Seymour is ripping the microphone out of Dan Gookin's hand when he's trying to have a word, well, we're posting a video that has Dan Gookin in it. So surely Dan Wilson must be in support of Gookin and everything Gookin's ever said. And you now align with, or you're the enemy of anybody that Gookin's ever offended. I mean, that's the conclusion. So then they're today arguing about it, between yesterday and today, arguing about it in the comment section there. So Terry was one of the ones that, as I was commenting to somebody else, she got woven into it. And so toward me, she's like, well, with all due disrespect.
All due disrespect?
With all due disrespect, you've never met me nor spoken with me. But I've got a couple of occasions. My only comment was, I have never known her to be kind.
No, she's not.
In how she responds. I never said that I personally, hey, we've sat down and had a chat. But when I called for making a phone call for our campaign, on behalf of our campaign,
because she worked for Russ Fulcher.
I didn't realize
Congressman Russ Fulcher.
I left a message for Congressman Russ Fulcher at his office there, and I got a return phone call. Didn't realize who I was speaking with, and I thought, man, this gal is she's rude. Like, she's really on edge. And after the call, getting the answer that I was looking for, curt answer, I realized, it was Terry.
Well,
it was Terry.
A week later, because that whole, the way that went down with the endorsement of Russ Fulcher of Bob Norris, that when we called her, it existed. A week later, I called down to the Lewiston office, and they said, absolutely, that is not an endorsement. And quote, Terry has caused us a lot of problems. So Terry, you were even quoted by folks in the Russ Fulcher office down in Lewiston that you're a handful and a problem. And by the way, when Bob Norris is crying at the pachyderms, or the Reagan Republicans, I guess it was, when he's breaking down and crying because he says, I'm a member of the Micah Grange. There's that awkward pause. You hear Terry in the background. We love you, Bob.
It's okay, Bob.
It's okay, Bob. We
love you, Bob.
No.
Okay, was that too much?
No.
I've asked that before. Was that too much?
It's not too much.
We promise on this program that we are going to talk about the political power players in Kootenai County.
Yeah.
And it took Dan entering the race for us to understand the hierarchy, the structure, who you are supposed to or not supposed to be friends with or align with, or, you really should cozy up to them, or you really should try to inch by inch be sitting at their table. And it takes a long time. Well, some of it happened rapidly for the people who showed up to cause you problems. Yeah. And you're like, okay, these are a couple of the characters.
County Commissioner Bruce Matar.
Several of the main characters in this now story.
And we hear repeatedly over and over again when we talk to multiple different folks that have had run-ins with the KCRCC, they're the exact same actors that are unhinged.
Yes.
But
they're on the roster. Terry Seymour is one of them on the roster. And you know what? This probably will stroke your ego, Terry. You are a political power player of Kootenai County.
And she gets to sit at
You are one
Bob's
of them
table
on the roster, and you get to sit at the reserve table. So you've really moved up in the world.
And here is the problem with this KCRCC, what I'm now calling a cult, as it presently sits. You guys have become so over the top with your ideologies, with your belief that you are the purest of pure, and nobody who's not part of your tribe, part of your clique, well, nobody else can have any say when it comes to our country. You completely miss that the founders understood in the marketplace of ideas, you have to have discussions with all sorts of citizens, and the best arguments win out. But this is rapidly becoming a dictatorship right here in Kootenai County. I don't know how else to call it, but when you believe that you are the only ones right and nobody else, it's no different than religion. You go to your denomination because no other denomination is as pure as yours, or your theology is more pure than the other. It's the same thing, and that is not good for politics. The founders wanted our process to be slow, arduous. They did not want one-party rule. Now, we have had one-party rule all the way across the country, and we see states that are heavily run by Democrats. But I can say that it's equally not a good idea to have Republicans that will not self-reflect, that will not be honest when they screw up, and will not adjust their course.
Well, and if you think about it, if you cannot have respectful discourse, or if you buy into this idea that everything is a simple equation, if at the town hall, for example, if somebody comes and disrupt and the disruptor is out of line, the disruptor is bad, then every action taken thereafter by the party that you agree with is 100% correct and justified. Yeah. And we're trying to live in this land like these simple mathematical equations, 1 + 1 = 2, instead of, if you've ever written a formula in an Excel spreadsheet, if-then statements. If this is true, then there's that, or, and you have the or statements, the else, and the if. This really should be more about like composing a formula rather than just it's either all of this or it's all of that. And those are the arguments that I'm seeing. And think about how dangerous that is for the Republican Party. Because if every other idea is out, if you don't agree with the influence of Brent Regan and the hierarchy and the structure there, and you are now on the outs, just imagine, and this is a question, imagine a world where political power players understood this and knew that to take Kootenai County, all we have to do is have the R. That's all we have to do is create more power in these organizations, and anybody who doesn't agree, you're out. And that is extremely dangerous, because you can be overtaken by somebody that just says, we are your powerful political party, and you are not allowed to disagree.
Yeah. So my question for those that are dyed in the wool KCRCC sycophants: who polices you? In the real world, in our government, we have checks and balances. Congress is put in check by the executive and by the judicial, and the executive by the judicial and the legislative, and so on and so forth. So who's keeping Brent Regan and now all of those that have a chokehold on this local Republican Central Committee? Who is keeping you guys in check? Well, let me tell you that you guys are finally getting put into check by people like me, by folks that say, we're not drinking your Kool-Aid anymore. And I am as conservative as they get. I have a record, unlike some conservatives here locally that call themselves conservative, like Brent Regan, who during the pandemic, despite the fact that he has wealth from what I'm told, took a payday loan for $75,000, give or take, and the entire thing was written off. So you have a guy that wants to continually bitch and tell everybody about who should or shouldn't be the most conservative. And he sits at the helm of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. And yet he doesn't even have the courage, despite most likely, my guess, he doesn't need $75,000. He takes it because it's legal. So Brent, if you want to sit down and you want to talk about conservative ideas and beliefs, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with you about that, because you're looking at a guy right here that's never taken one damn dime from any government, despite during the pandemic, when I had my full crew and we were hiring like crazy when everybody else was laying off. And my banker came up to me and continually pressured me, you need to get on the PPP loans. I'm like, no, we're not going to do it. My accountants, my friends, my peers, but no. I don't care how legal it was. I said no, because I'm standing on the principles of limited government, dangerous liberty over a certain security. So, yeah, we're going to keep you in check. There's guys like Dan Dawna that are going to keep you in check, and the many others on the North Idaho Republicans that you don't like because you think they're rhinos. We're going to talk a little more about this tonight. We're going to go around some of the quotes that people have been saying, but first, we're going to go back and talk about this debacle, this town hall, if you will, that took place on, February 22nd.
And right before we get to that, I just want to invite you with our phone call to make a phone call if you'd like to get in on the discussion and speak with Dan directly live on the air. It's 208-366-4671. Again, that number is 208-366-4671.
Bob Norris took a situation. This is all my belief. Bob Norris took a situation that could have had a completely different outcome. One where the Cooney County Republican Central Committee could have come across as thwarting, they all believe, this joined effort by leftists, maybe even Soros money, according to some of the publications that I've seen. They could have taken this event and rather than become the poster boy for Idaho tyrannical Republicans, they could have turned it around and they could have turned the entire operation, if it was an operation, on their ear. Now, we know that Representative Jordan Redmond came out on the Idaho Signal podcast, Matt Edwards, and he claimed that prior to the event, they were all briefed that there was going to be a disruption, 30 to 40 individuals. Bob Norris was apparently in charge of security, law enforcement. We don't really know because the different reports we're getting, the different quotes, seem to be all over the place. We're going to talk about Lear Asset Management.
Very inconsistent stories. Yeah.
But rather than being prepared for anything and turning this on them, rather than to be behind the curve and be reactionary, and now creating an international scandal. I mean, Inside Edition, when Inside Edition is reporting on Sheriff Robert Bob Norris's potential, what should we say, insurance fraud of his shoulders. That's their words, not mine.
I'm like, once it hits Inside Edition, this is really trashy. We were in the dumpster fire now, man. Yeah.
So we keep hearing all these different reports. We're going to go over a little more detail because as facts come out, different trains of thought, transpire. I know that the protester, Teresa Borenpol, has retained an attorney, and that's going to be interesting to watch. Who all is going to get tangled up? Is it going to be just Sheriff Robert Norris for violation of First and Fourth Amendment rights? Is it going to be the KCRCC? Is it going to be Lear Asset Management? Or is it possibly even going to include Ed Bajarana?
Yeah.
Lots of different angles there. But we know that we have just begun. This is far from being over, and the courts are going to have a lot of fun with this.
Now, since you brought up the lawsuits and that she's retained an attorney, I just want to jump in real quick to say we have a contributing author over on Liberty Without Compromise who we've just published a story called A Tale of Two Lawsuits with Sheriff Bob Norris. So I wanted to just nudge you guys to head over as Dan's moving through his topic to check out that article that has been posted, because it is going to explain a lot of this and the timeline, the lawsuit that he's currently in, and then what is to come.
Yeah.
So he really is in a mess, quite a mess.
Well, he's got this other lawsuit, of course,
Yes.
that's going to be, well, they switched judges. So the original first trial date or first court appearance was going to be here in a week or so. And now it's been moved all the way back to April. So the new judge can get caught up on it. But, coming back to this event, the argument, and I'm completely amazed. I said this when Bob was originally accused last year in a tort claim against the county and against Bob Norris, that the best thing you do anytime there's going to be legal action is shut your mouth, and especially shut your mouth. But Brent Reagan, the KCRCC, and others don't seem to share that. In fact, they're so confident that they were having a private event and that they're covered, that they just keep every day posting more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really fascinating to...
Well, and you see the side-by-side today that Reagan put out, or the Central Committee, that, hey, look, this is what they did at Trump's speech. Boom, he was removed. And it was just more in support of their argument.
Completely different types of meeting, of course. And this is where the legal scholars get to come in and be the great deciders. These are what Supreme Court case oftentimes are deciders on. Now, I have a video, and I want to play this again because there have been folks that say, Norris was completely in the right. And, despite the fact that he failed to get any kind of law enforcement there, some quotes that has said Coeur d'Alene didn't have jurisdiction. which is hilarious. Coeur d'Alene police didn't have jurisdiction inside Coeur d'Alene city limits at a Coeur d'Alene school that was open to the public. They were there they had 2 units out in the front to protect Representative Redmond, who there was an active mass casualty threat against him. But somehow, this whole idea that they just needed armed or unarmed or whatever type of security, nobody knew who it was, whether the KCRCC hired them or not. We're going to talk about this in a little greater detail. But I would contend that when you look at whether or not this was a lawful arrest by Bob Norris, or whether he did or didn't, whether it's a lawful detainment or not, a couple things that we want to show you to kind of start the workings in your mind as you start to question. We have a video that shows at the very beginning of this, as the crowd is erupting and multiple people are shouting out, you have Bob Norris coming from the far side of the auditorium away from. And
I'm going to put that up because we don't have audio, so you can talk us through that.
Yeah, so we'll start watching this here. You have a representative talking here. Obviously, there's a boring pole that's yelling.
So the point isn't the audio. Mm-hmm. Dan's talking you through this.
Now, right there, you see strobe lights going off. That's Sheriff Robert Norris, who is or is not on official duty, walking all the way, bypassing anybody else that's speaking out, and immediately going up to her and telling her that she has to leave. So let's go to slide number 2, trespass. I just want to hit some of these things pretty quick here. This is from Idaho State Code. See if I can get on mine correctly here. This is Idaho 18007-8. The question is, what law did she break in order to be trespassed? A person shall not be guilty of trespass under this section for entering or remaining upon real property if the person entered or remained on the property pursuant to any of the following rights or authorities. A, an established right of entry or occupancy of the real property in question, including but not limited to an invitation, whether express or implied, to enter or remain on real property, including but not limited to the right to enter the property that is at that time open to the public if the person is in compliance with lawful conditions imposed on the access. Now, what were these lawful conditions imposed on the access? These are some of the questions that are going to be coming up to figure out the validity of Bob Norris's actions. And is it reasonable? I mean, I think, again, we showed last week with the various emails where he called her out 2 years earlier that he was upset because she berated him at a Democratic event. There are other elected officials that were in attendance there that have also said some pointed disparaging comments towards her. And I think it doesn't bode well, especially since one of those is a special deputy. Now, when you look at this video of Bob Norris making a beeline all the way across the auditorium, I start looking and thinking, was this the entire plan all along? The KCRCC knew that Teresa and others were going to show up. It's a long-standing feud. Teresa allegedly, we don't know this for certain, it was never proven, pulled a fire alarm at a North Idaho College meeting. She was never charged, but they knew that she was going to show up, and rather than have law enforcement there, it gave them a great opportunity to have Mr. Law and Order Sheriff Robert Norris, without any other of his deputies around, without any Coeur d'Alene police, that he's going to go and he's going to remove her out and he's going to save the day. He's seen the trailer, the movie, and the sequel.
Oh, the sequel.
Right?
I was like, is it the end? Oh, we've seen the end and the sequel.
So I find it fascinating when you watch the multiple videos that chaos that is starting to ensue. Yeah.
That wasn't the best.
You have all this going on, and Bob makes a beeline towards her to what? He immediately tells her she's got to leave. Okay, well, why does she have to leave? What was it that she was doing?
Well, she was being a pain in the ass.
Okay, but what rules or laws was she breaking at the time? So he immediately goes to, you got to come out now. Didn't have the lawful right to tell her at that point to get up and move out. He just immediately starts that escalation, and then he threatens to pepper spray. We're going to go to that second part of that slide that we just showed up, and I want people to be cognizant of this. So when he threatens to pepper spray her,
do you know what page?
Was page 2 of that slide that I just had. Yeah.
All right.
So Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, here is their policy on pepper spray. Only personnel who have completed the prescribed course of instruction on the use or authorized to carry the device. Qualified and authorized non-uniformed personnel may carry the issued OC devices, and OC spray is considered a use of force and will be employed in a manner consistent with KCSO's use of force policy. So he goes in there, he immediately threatens to pepper spray her, but she wasn't trespassed at that time.
Right.
So you're threatening to use force on somebody that you didn't lawfully have the right to do at the time, given the circumstances. Of course, we're going to keep arguing, well, this was a private event.
Yeah.
But
she, in her testimony, watching the body cam footage that was released today through Casey Whalen, her recount of the events was that she had never once heard the word trespassed or trespassed until Coeur d'Alene police came on scene. And that's when the KCRCC's side, or the security crew, or Norris's side, was that here she is sitting here in the hallway, she has been trespassed. So Teresa's testimony was that was the first time she heard those words come out of anybody's mouth.
So Mike, you say, I also believe she essentially asked to be removed. I also believe she was not removed properly and that uniformed officers should have been there to remove anyone disrupting the meetings. Yeah, uniformed officer should have been there. So this plan that it looks like that possibly the KCRCC was hoping backfired, because you have a weak, egotistical, physically weak, emotionally weak man who you can watch him melt down in real time. He tells her to leave. She won't. He goes to, I'm going to pepper spray. And the second part I was going to talk about the pepper spray is the fact that that's a violation of your own policy, Bob. You cannot release pepper spray in close proximity to others.
But can he just say, well, I wasn't really going to do it? Because this was a dialogue I was having today.
Is she supposed to know this?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Would it be any different if he didn't have a gun and he said, I'm going to shoot you? All she has to know is that she believes that threat to be real. Mm-hmm. And, we know that he loves to use the pepper spray, because this isn't the first time he's been captured on camera.
He has.
He's going to use it on.
Nick wanted to know if Norris intentionally bypassed other people, would it be considered targeted harassment?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're trying to articulate. I know I'm getting a little off, but I think that her defense is going to, or her attorneys are going to probably push that. They're going to probably ask during discovery for any emails with her name mentioned in it between the sheriff's office or any other government agency. I think they're going to try to find whether or not the Kootenai Republican Central Committee prior to this event had a list of persons of interest, or a hit list, if you will, of people that they wanted to take out. But look, Bob Norris was too weak. He went hands-on. He didn't have the lawful right to go hands-on. He never told her she's under arrest. And in fact, we're going to read part of a police report here in a second where it tells the Coeur d'Alene police officers that he wanted her charged with trespassing. He used force on her. We're waiting for that use of force report. Have not seen that yet. Haven't seen the watch commander's report as well. So it's getting pretty interesting. Now, I think that one of the things that you guys should also consider is when you listen to Ed Bajarana, the infamous loudmouth MC, who instead of calming everything down, he starts engaging Teresa. Mm-hmm. She then is yelling back at him. So how is she disruptive if he is now, as the official MC, hurling questions and comments at her? And then, he's, as he said, he's got a big microphone. Well, loud voice and a big microphone. Well, hey, why is it considered to be disruptive if she's then, conversing with him back?
Since you brought up Ed, Damon's question was, do you think that Ed Bajarana would be brought up in a lawsuit, which Dan did mention earlier in the program? I mean, we don't know but is that on the table? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. But just look at Norris going into code black. For those of you that are into Cooper's color codes, We know that yellow is ready and watchful. Orange is you're relaxed but alert. Red is you have an active threat. And black is where you've completely lost control. And when you look at his videos and he's directing these security guys that are not marked, he keeps screaming at her, "You out now, you out now." So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Now, one of you, you know who you are. You tweeted that I'm a hypocrite and that from my very first initial commentary on the 22nd, when we had KCRCC PC, that's political committeeman Mark Smith, along with Quincy Franklin, who were there and gave us firsthand accounts.
Mark Stewart.
Who did I say?
Smith. I think we knew
Mark Stewart.
I knew a Mark Smith in high school. That's you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Thank you, Mr. Producer, Mrs. Producer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mark Stewart and you know, they were giving us their firsthand account. We were watching some of the early videos that came in, and they're just convinced that I'm a political opportunist, and I've completely changed my position. Do we have that video, that 12-second clip where they have their gotcha moment on me and what my belief is? I'm going to give it a shot,
see if this is the right one.
Nope, it is not okay at any time for anybody to become disruptive. We are guaranteed peaceful assembly. So I do not condone any kind of behavior. Nope. Yeah. I still stand by that. Just so we're clear, I'm not condoning the behavior that took place, but I'm also not giving a pass and saying that because of the behavior that was exhibited and all the other extenuating factors, that the response was inappropriate. And we can argue all day long, legal, illegal.
So there was a second video used side by side as, hey, here's my receipts. Cause you said that, and you said it's never okay to interrupt. And then a week later, after that second, or the following Wednesday in that live stream, you kind of went on this was your moment. KCRCC and Brent Reagan and Bob Norris, this was your moment to have handled this in a way that might have given some grace, that might have given some latitude. So I think people were mistaking that, look, if Dan is giving a fiery response, like somehow that sounded like you were changing your stance on the situation as a whole. Yeah,
and I think in law enforcement, especially in the position of sheriff where you protect everybody's rights, had that been a uniformed officer that went up there and said, hey, you got to stop or you're going to be charged with public disturbance or whatever, or you will be trespassed, then okay, fine. That's cool. But this is not Mayberry. We don't have a sheriff that's on active patrol with his two other deputies, with Barney.
The one guy that lets himself in and out of jail.
Yeah.
Goes get a beer and then he comes back, locks himself back up.
What I'm saying is, as a sheriff who is there representing, I don't understand how you guys do not get this. Those of you that are critics, the sheriff is not just a Republican sheriff. Now, in this county, a Republican sheriff is most likely going to be the only avenue for a very, very long time because it's a Republican county. Independents, as I found out, are not going to most likely secure that position. But it does not mean that the sheriff, like judges, should be completely independent in their thought and their alliance, and they should not be ever giving any kind of special treatment to any one party. So I believe that would have been a great opportunity for the sheriff to give her some feedback. Look, you need to stop this, ma'am, please. We're politely asking you to settle down or to wait your turn or whatever. And then when that fails, then you let the other uniforms come in and do their job. But as the sheriff, do you know how bad the optics are? And the country's laughing at you, Bob Norris. They're laughing at your, first of all, inability. You have zero command presence. You look like a very first year boot. You look like a rookie that hasn't gone through FTO. You can't even properly put your hands on somebody in order to move them from their position. I don't even know do you even have a certification in DT? I don't see anything that you did there that reminds me of a seasoned 30-year law enforcement professional, that was in the LA riots and all the other crap that you want to see on your various website and bios. But yeah, the world is laughing at you because of your response. Now we can move on from there. So those that, I guess in conclusion, think that I'm a hypocrite. Yeah, well, you are wrong. I've never changed my position.
And I think before we move into talking about the security situation at that town hall, because that has a lot of reason to get into the nuts and bolts of that. It's quite interesting. I want to give a shout out and thanks to our sponsor for tonight. So we're going to take this quick break to learn about Stella's Stogies in Spirit Lake on Main Street. And if you want to call in to the program tonight, it's 208-366-4671. Again, that's 208-366-4671. Let your voice be heard.
Awesome.
Light up that cigar. Stella's Stogies is your one-stop shop for all things cigars. Located on historic Main Street in Spirit Lake, Stella's Stogies believes that there's nothing quite like enjoying a good cigar with friends. That's why they're there to help you pick the perfect cigar. Stella's has a great selection of cigars, cigar accessories, and information about cigars, making it easy for you to find just what you're looking for. Owners Brad and Lisa are passionate about cigars and are committed to providing you with the best possible cigar shopping experience. They believe that a good cigar is a great way to relax and socialize, and they're excited to share their love of cigars with you. Stella's also does pop-up shops for events, so be sure to ask them about that. Mention that you heard about Stella's Stogies on the Liberty Without Compromise live stream and get 10% off your purchase. Learn more at stellasstogies.com. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely,
I was trying
100%.
to do that.
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely 100%. Go up to Spirit Lake to Stella's Stogies. It's a great place. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about our friends Brad and Lisa. Let's go to slide number 3. We're going to go over the police report, the Coeur d'Alene police reports, plural. It wasn't just one. There was not only the 2 officers that arrived on scene after the event took place, but also a sergeant's follow-up. And the one that I find really one of the most fascinating parts is the school resource officer. We're gonna talk about what he reported, when he reported, and all the varying differences between what Nina Beasley and KCRCC and everybody is saying.
Let's get cracking.
Let's go to page number 4 real quick, though. I do want to keep going down this trail on Norris. Page 4 of the report, you have the investigating officer in their narrative. Sheriff Norris told me that there was a female in the crowd that became very disruptive and was interrupting the forum taking place. Sheriff Norris approached the female, who he knew as Teresa, and asked her to leave. She refused. He asked her numerous times to leave and continued to refuse. He then demanded her to leave. And when she wouldn't, he had the security team come in and physically remove her from the auditorium. A struggle with Teresa took place between the security team as they tried to remove her. Initially, Sheriff Norris wanted her trespassed and removed. Okay. So you're hearing the sheriff give the narrative to the responding officer. He left out a couple key, details. One is that he failed to mention that he went hands-on with her. Not once, but twice. They threatened to pepper spray her. Those are important things to be paying attention to, because I know that Teresa's attorney and many others are going to be paying attention to these things as well. Page number 5, talking about the security guards. They were all wearing green tactical pants and black tactical shirts, but Sheriff Norris was wearing his badge and a Kootenai County Sheriff's Office hat.
Okay.
That's an observation. So I take this that by those that saw him right there up close and in person, he was there in his official capacity, unless he's there at the bid and beck and call of Brent Reagan as a politician. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to skim through this pretty quick. Let's go to page number 6. A security guard then advised that Sheriff Robert Norris had given multiple people multiple warnings during the public forum to leave the area prior to our arrival on scene. Well, where are all those people? Why aren't they being detained? They leave? And where's the video of that? I want to see that. Why did he bypass them and decide to walk all the way across the auditorium with his light flashing that strobe function all the way across that auditorium as he walked directly towards her? Was she a target? I'd say very well could be. All right, supplemental report by Officer Clifton. He talks about that he was also advised that Sheriff Norris wanted the female arrested for trespassing. Again, Bob Norris, Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the county. You have jurisdiction. Why don't you arrest her? Or did you arrest her? I'm confused. Did you arrest her and lawfully put your hands on her? Or did you unlawfully detain her? Did you assault her? And to cover up, you now want Coeur d'Alene Police Department to charge her. Why aren't you charging her? If you're in there and you decided that you were going to go hands-on, then should you not be writing your own arrest reports? Question. Has anybody asked Bob Norris that question? Goes on, Taylor to have the female accompany her out of her patrol unit where she was cited and released for battery. Okay, so she wasn't cited for the original violation, which was, according to them, trespass. In the end, she was only cited for the battery, and I believe the battery was probably the bite that she gave to one of the security guys on their thumb. Let's see if there's anything else there that's of note. Let's go to page number 10. This is supplemental report by Officer Josh Renault. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This was done 2 days prior to the Saturday event. He says, this is page number 10, on 2/20/25 at approximately 1500 hours, that's 3 o'clock. While I was working as the school resource officer at Coeur d'Alene High School, I was contacted by school activity director Norma Alley and school custodian Kelly Human about an incident they were concerned about. Alley informed me about an event in which the school building was going to be used by an outside group on 2/22/25 to hold a town hall event. This event was sponsored by the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee and was to be a town hall style event between voters and some of the state legislators. Alley and Human, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't have my glasses on, informed me that they just met with the representative for the KCRCC, Nina Beasley, and a security representative identified as Paul Truett. Truett owns a local security company called Lear Asset Management. Alley and Human informed me it was their belief the meeting between themselves, Beasley and Truett, were to go over some of the group's needs for the venue. It was determined that the event would be held in the auditorium of the school, and most of the rest of the school would be partitioned off, such as the members of the community would not have access to the majority of the school. They further informed me they thought the meeting with Beasley and Truett was to go over logistically for the room, such as table and chair placement on the stage. During their walkthrough, Truett informed Alley and Human he was there to be executive protection for the dignitaries and legislators of the event. He stated that he was doing an advanced sweep and started asking questions about points of ingress and egress in the event that they needed to evacuate the dignitaries in attendance, as well as parking of security vehicles for an emergency exit. Okay. So I was an executive protection agent for 5 years, working in high-risk environments outside of the United States and inside. I worked as a detail leader and advance agent for even some political candidates for president. So I've done these advances, and he's talking the language. It's all consistent. But here's what's really interesting: why in the world would you need to provide executive protection for 7, 8, 9, 10 legislators? Why all of a sudden were they going to need this extra protection? Question, file that to the side. He stated that he was doing an advanced sweep, started asking questions about points of ingress, egress in the event they needed to evacuate, as well as parking of security vehicles for an emergency exit. It should be known that this walkthrough took place near the end of the school day while students were still in class. And by the way, pay very close attention to what I'm going to read to you next. While students were still in class, it should be further noted there was not a request by Truett to speak with any security personnel, either the campus security or myself, during his conversation, despite both being on campus at the time. It's very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
When I was advancing any venue, the very first thing that I did was I planned my trips specifically to speak to the head of security.
Right.
Law enforcement.
Not an admin that's walking you around the building, showing you where doors, tables, chairs are, that sort of thing.
Because your security manager at any venue, the director of security, whatever, or their designee is going to have all the vital information and talk your language if you're truly making a plan. So I find it's interesting that he's claiming he's doing executive protection. He's walking with Beasley. They think at the school they're just going to talk about chairs and arrangements,
right?
Tablecloths. He's doing this super secret squirrel, assessment. But why in the world does he not want to engage security or the school resource officer? I have a thought on why he didn't.
Okay,
I think he somewhat wanted to be under the radar.
Mm-hmm. I
don't think they wanted law enforcement or security to know that they were going to be there. They originally tried to be armed. I'm going to go on. There wasn't any request to speak to him. He was not informed. This officer says he was not informed of their coming on campus. Remember, they did it late on Thursday, or their presence there until after they, meaning Beasley and Truett, left the building. To my knowledge, Beasley did not indicate Truett was hired to be security during her time at the school. The information came solely from Truett. So Truett's running his mouth when Beasley's there. Beasley must have set the original meeting up on behalf of the KCRCC.
Right.
And Truett's the one that's running his mouth to...
And the whole aspect of security was kind of a last minute. It was an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
So they combined that meeting probably that Beasley had already... arranged.
So here's what's interesting. And again, this fascinates me for a guy that if you go to his website, which was still up as of a couple hours ago for Lear Asset Management, he claims all this special high-speed training for security personnel and for law enforcement. And they do all sorts of high-level executive protection, dignitary protection, asset protection. But the way that he's conducting business right now is not consistent with that profession. At approximately 15:10 hours, that's 3:10, Allie provided me with Truett's business card and stated questions about he and his group's ability to carry firearms in the building during the event. I took the card and told her I would reach out to Truett and discuss it with him further. I'm guessing what he did, he was trying to be under the radar, didn't want to talk to security, didn't want to talk to law enforcement. So he thought he was going to go to this admin and say, hey, just so you know, we're going to be here. Is it cool? We're going to be armed, just checking. Allie decided, we're going to run this up the flagpole, and rightfully so, and talk with the officer on campus. He contacted Truett on his business phone. He stated he'd been hired by the KCRCC and was providing security for the event. Now, rather than reading all this, I'm just going to skip to some key statements. Truett claimed since he had been hired as security, he and his employees would be allowed to carry firearms into the school. The officer said he was going to look into the matter. There was discussions that went up the chain with the school district, eventually going all the way up to Under Sheriff Brent Nelson. Not exactly certain why the sheriff's office was brought into this discussion about the legality of security guys operating on behalf of a political organization carrying firearms at a Coeur d'Alene school. Something tells me that they were trying to fish whether or not Norris was involved with this, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, are these guys working wink, wink, nudge, nudge with Sheriff Norris? Sergeant Paul told me he'd spoken to Captain Walther about this incident, who then informed him he had spoken to Under Sheriff Nelson about the event and specifically about Truett. He was informed by Captain Walther and told by Under Sheriff Nelson Truett was not employed to be a security at the event that they could find. These are clues, folks. He goes on to say, I informed him, Truett, I was not able to verify he had been hired by anyone to provide security for the event and asked if he could provide the school district or myself with a copy of the contract showing him and his company had been hired to provide security or the name of the official from the KCRCC who would be issuing the payment for a security service. It was at this point Truett changed his story a bit and stated he was not really hired, but he had volunteered his services to the KCRCC and was not going to be paid for the event. Additionally, he stated he did not have a contract drawn up and signed showing what services he would be providing to the event. Fascinating. He goes on. The fact he was not specifically employed as security, hired or contracted by the event, and he was merely donating his time, neither he nor his people were legally able to carry firearms on campus. Or skip it down. They eventually get KCRCC, I think it's Government Affairs Chair, Jamie Haas, who tells him, the officer, the SRO, that there was no contract between the KCRCC and Lear Asset Management to provide security for the event, but she was aware Truett was willing to donate his time. In discussing the situation with her, there's been no specific threat to anyone in attendance necessitating armed security. She agreed if his people were in attendance, they would not have firearms. So this goes on for quite a while. Truett changes his story. He is originally hired, Secret Squirrel, to be dignitary protection, executive protection. Folks, understand that when you are a executive protection agent, and I was, you are plain clothes most of the time, and your job solely is to protect your VIP, your dignitary, not to control the crowd, not to control anything that those people may or may not do that's lawful or unlawful. Your job is to get your protectees off the X anytime there is a threat to their physical well-being. So he changes. And I'm telling you, this is a clue. My belief is that Bob Norris knew what was going on. We have videos from a year ago at a Show Your Proof event where Bob Norris and him got into it publicly along with Special Deputy Bruce Matari.
Where Bob Norris and who got into it?
Truett.
Yeah.
Now, disclosure, about a year prior to this latest event at the Coeur d'Alene school, Paul had reached out to me when I was a candidate. He told me he was unsuccessful in getting Bob Norris to listen to his idea to sell services. In essence, I may be misquoting it, but more or less contract police services. Cooney County's having a problem retaining deputies or hiring deputies, and he could come in there and save the day by providing his services. I'm not saying Paul's a bad guy at all. I really don't know. But I think that Paul got involved with a group that he should not have gotten involved with professionally. I think it's coming back.
Yeah, a question over on Instagram was, I wonder if Lear will bring a lawsuit against Norris for wrongfully directing their employees or their volunteers.
Yeah, under the color of law, right? And when you watch, and this is kind of where I'm coming with this, you can read later on in this report by the school resource officer where he point blank tells Paul, your people can be here, but they have to have markings on them. They have to be marked security. Well, okay, that's not what they did. And you have these guys that, I'm sorry, I did the job. Not only did I do the executive protection, but I also did law enforcement. And I'm telling you, his guys did not look trained up to me. So it's fascinating that Paul entered into this arrangement. And by the way, they kept saying there was no active threat at that time. What did KCRCC know at that time that they decided that they needed to have executive protection, and they allowed this guy so much that Nina Beasley said, hey, I'm going to bring Paul with me.
Yeah, and I was hoping you'd get to that because I think some of our viewers are misunderstanding that you maybe didn't know. You didn't have any inkling as to why they were there or why they took those extra measures, which isn't the case. So
Yeah.
that yeah.
So, you've got this scope creep. You have changes from what was originally stated. Their purpose was to be there, which is, gray man executive protection. But we're going to keep coming back to this. What did the KCRCC know? What did Bob Norris know? When did they know it? And what was their plan? I don't recall any other town hall that we've been to, and we've been to many of them, where they had security. So why did they have security? If you had security for an open town hall, why did you not have terms? Like when you go to the fair, even if you get a free ticket, you get that ticket and it tells you you have to abide by the rules of entrance. But you have this event. It's almost as if the KCRCC players, some of them knew that there was an active threat and that they were going to capitalize on it. And you just see this mishmash of problem after problem after problem. Look, Lear's in a lot of trouble. Not only did the city of Coeur d'Alene withdraw their license with the city, but I think that when you go back and look at the totality of everything, you start seeing who's going to turn on who when it comes to who's going to be left holding the bag. A lot of things are going to come to the surface. Again, Paul may be a super nice guy. His guys may be good dudes, but poor discernment to be involved and to get your guys involved in something where they clearly were not going to go hands-on until Sheriff Bob Norris, under the color of authority, told them, go seize this woman, because he couldn't do it himself. He's too big of a...
Yeah. And we had a comment here earlier. I can't find it. It's but that they were hesitant. You could see on the video that when Norris made that command or told them, get her and take her out, there was that moment of hesitation that you could see in their face, almost like, that's not why we were here. That's not, this wasn't our assignment.
Let's go to slide number 1. We've beat that up pretty good. I want to close this out by pointing out a few very interestingly worded statements from the Coeur d'Alene Police Department as well as Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So this letter came out, this press release statement, if you will, from the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, Chief White, February 24th. This is 2 days after the infamous event. He says the Coeur d'Alene Police Department is investigating the incident. That's right, investigating. He goes on to say that at the Republican Central Committee organized and held a town hall meeting, which was open to the public. Again, words matter. At Coeur d'Alene High School, during the meeting, opinions were expressed both for and against various topics of discussion during the meeting after speaking out of turn. Teresa Borenpole was asked to leave. When she refused, she was physically removed by employees of Lear Asset Management, a private security firm hired by the event organizers. Officers who were in the school parking lot due to the threat of one of the state legislators were alerted to the incident after Borenpole had been removed. During the initial investigation, officers learned Borenpole bit one of the men involved in removing her. With the officers, now listen to this, with the officers' limited information at the time, Borenpole was cited for battery, most likely because Bob Norris compelled them as the chief law enforcement officer of the county.
Yeah, they took his statement before hers, and that was in the body cam footage. So,
Since the initial investigation, officers and detectives have continued to investigate this incident. It's active, folks. After reviewing all new evidence and video related to the event, the city prosecuting attorney's office has moved to dismiss the citation against Borenpole. Pay attention. In the interest of justice. Business license for Lear Asset Management has been revoked for violating Coeur d'Alene city ordinances regarding security agencies and agents. And the Coeur d'Alene Police Department recognizes and values all rights afforded by the United States Constitution to all citizens, including the right to free speech. Pay attention. This is a complex incident, and detectives continue to work through all aspects of the investigation. More information will be released when it becomes available. So there could still be charges filed against certain individuals.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think people were kind of questioning that, figuring that. It's a complex equation.
Same day, Under Sheriff Brett Nelson releases the following statement. The Cooney County Sheriff's Office is aware of the incident involving Sheriff Norris of the town hall event on Saturday, February 22nd, Coeur d'Alene High School. For clarification, pay attention. For clarification, there were no Cooney County deputy sheriffs or other personnel present at or involved in this incident. The Coeur d'Alene Police Department is handling the criminal investigation regarding this matter. Handling the criminal investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Brett, I hate to tell you this, but you are wrong, sir. There were no uniformed Kootenai deputies there, but there was a deputy who's publicly stated gleefully, basked in the light of the fact that he is a special deputy, that is County Commissioner Bruce Matari. We go to page number 3. Just want to remind folks, in the November 19th, 2023 Coeur d'Alene Press, the article titled "Sheriff's Office Relies on Hundreds of Special Deputies." Cooney County Commissioner Bruce Matari is among the sheriff's special deputies. He is the only elected official with special deputy status. When Norris ran for office in 2020, Matari was his campaign manager. Norris swore Matari in as a special deputy advisor after taking office in early 2021. I also saw video footage of a Kootenai County Sheriff's Office unit on site when Borenpole was getting her site at the Coeur d'Alene police officer's cruiser. So anyway, where's this going to go? Well, it's probably going to die down a little bit. You're going to have a couple flames that are fanned every once in a while. You'll have flare-ups. This is going to be a long process, and it's going to be fascinating to watch and find out who's going to start being fingered out as culpable for this.
Let's take a phone call if we can.
Awesome.
Are you there? Let us know who you are, and you're on the air with Dan Wilson. Uh-oh.
Caller, are you there?
Oh, we gave it a try.
All right.
Okay.
It's going to be more interesting to see who starts turning. Who are they going to start leveraging first? Who are they going to start squeezing to tell what the real truth is? Because somebody knows what the truth is. I would hate to think that the KCRCC is so smug that they think that they have judges and everybody else in their back pocket, that they don't have any kind of a list, special interest list, or a hit list of protesters that they were going to deal with. And I could see them being arrogant and dumb enough to do something like that. Mm-hmm. Don't know that they did.
Yeah.
But I could see it happening. So, and this whole discussion has sparked yet another fascinating, I guess I don't know if it's a paradigm. I'm struggling here for words. Mm-hmm. But this whole idea that because I'm coming out against the actions of Bob Norris and the KCRCC, and I am aligning in agreement when statements are made by Dan or Bree Gookin or by others that are not considered to be part of the KCRCC, that somehow that I'm a Marxist like they have labeled Dan Gookin to be. And I think we have some of those screenshots that would be fun to put up there for folks to see what some of the comments are about. How dare Dan Wilson at all agree with the local communists?
Yeah, my problem is I can't read that screen, so I'm not of help to you to even. I put it up there.
Right,
one of the comments is Dan Wilson supports because there was somebody put together a montage of Gookin saying some things that were harsh. Mm-hmm. And offensive to Christians and conservatives. So that video was circulating Idaho Freedom Fighters website. And then you had an individual that says, and Dan Wilson supports him, it would seem like.
What does that mean by support? If you're going to pop off, you're going to say that stuff, then you equally must qualify exactly what that means. So I guess that we live in a world, in a country where we're all fellow Americans. And at any time, if your opposition says something that is true or correct or right, and you agree with them that is somehow supporting, again, I don't support anybody other than the truth. And I'm not ashamed that I am agreeing with Dan Gukin when Dan Gukin's right. The same as that I would align with Brent Reagan if Brent Reagan is doing right things. That's not the question. The question is why are you folks out there so insecure that if anybody dares to talk to those that you don't think are worthy of talking to, that's equating to that you're adopting the opposition's viewpoints. And again, I don't even know what the opposition is. Just to be clear, I don't have any beef with Dan because I haven't followed enough of what he says to say whether or not I agree with what he says most of the time or some of the stuff part of the time or what in between.
Okay, so another one of the comments was from Kelly Broderick. Well, it certainly looks like you're partnering up with Gukin. It looks that way. You're acting like a politician. He seems to believe his only shot at winning is to team up with the left, which is local rhinos, to take down the KCRCC, which didn't endorse him. But the KCRCC isn't just Brent. It's a group of our conservative precinct committeemen and legislators who are battling for MAGA principles. Feels like revenge, aligning with the left, and it's disappointing.
So, Kelly, you think that I am selling out and becoming a politician because I'm speaking what I believe to be truth, and I have for several weeks articulated what I believe to be the truth, and somehow you're so intellectually dishonest that you bypass anything that I've said for the past 2 or 3 hours on this topic, my numerous tweets, and the only thing you get out of it is well, I'm mad at the KCRCC, so I've now decided that I'm on the side of the North Idaho Republicans. Because isn't that what you guys call Dan Gukin? Is that what you guys call Mark Stewart? Mark Stewart lost his position at the KCRCC legislative subcommittee because he dared to come on my show hours after that event took place and give a factual first account of what took place. I would argue and say, Kelly, you're the sellout. You're the sellout because you are so entrenched in hating anybody that isn't KCRCC that when the KCRCC performs bad, when your sheriff does things that are wrong, you dig in rather than correct him like we the people, we are the governed. We allow ourselves to be governed. It's at our consent. Your job is to hold your politicians accountable. And you want to come in here and you want to tell me that I'm somehow selling out? How dare you? I would argue and say that you're probably the real rhino because you don't have a real good concept exactly of what being a Republican or a conservative means. We're going to go to a slide. A quote on James Madison. You guys all want to quote the famous stuff that the founders say, but I don't think you ever really read what the founders say in their entirety. Let's look what Madison had to say. He said this quote, "The right of freely examining public characters and measures and of free communication among the people thereon have ever been justly deemed the only effectual guardian of every other right." He argued this at a Free Press Open Discourse. He argued that it was essential for protecting all other rights, reflecting his deep commitment to liberty. Kelly, we live in a world where if we don't exercise our articulation for what we believe and listen back and forth in this marketplace of ideas, you are nothing more than a partisan in an echo chamber, and you do not believe in liberty. If you are a Christian, I don't know if you are or aren't, but the scripture tells us over and over again that we're to be accountable to other people. The KCRCC, as it currently is accountable to no one. It's only accountable to those that are in that office. And we know this, that there are people that have wanted to speak out and they're afraid to. When people of an organization are afraid to speak out against leadership, or not even speak out, question. What do you call that? What would you call people that go to a church where if they dare question any of the actions or statements by the pastors or the elders, that you're apostate? We call that a cult. So, message to those that want to continually malign me. Understand, I'm not going to bend under whatever pressure you think you're going to put on me. I'm not going to be dissuaded from conversations with those that I agree with and those that I do not agree with. Tad, you've run your mouth for almost a year. In fact, you've run your mouth almost longer than anybody. Luckily for me, I don't have to read most of your blather because I don't actually manage most of the social media websites. But you run your mouth and you say that you have offered to get together with me one-on-one. Well, do it, brother. You want to come and talk with me? Let's talk liberty all day long. But many of you have been given the opportunity to come and talk with me personally, one-on-one, to meet, to call into this broadcast, and you won't do it. I've been at public events where those that have attacked me more often than not, you guys are all a bunch of little giants sitting in a corner that aren't even courageous in a group to talk about things liberty. I don't know it all. There will be times that I don't have answers or that I may be wrong, but I will not be controlled by anybody because I fully believe in liberty without compromise, and life, liberty, and property are all possible because of your liberty. Your liberty is what allows you to be alive and to chase your dreams and to build your intellectual and personal property. How dare you call yourselves conservatives and then refuse to discuss your ideals with those that you don't agree? You don't like what Dan Dawna does at city councils? Then respectfully have a conversation with him and learn to articulate your position. Find out the things that you do agree on that make liberty-minded people stronger. But if you're going to be it's all or nothing, then this body in Kootenai County is doomed to failure and you will crash under your own weight.
Oh.
I don't know what else to say.
I think you said it. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. You can visit our website. That's libertywithoutcompromise.com. Don't forget to look at that newly published article by contributing author Linda Cook, A Tale of Two Lawsuits on Bob Norris. That's a good one. It's going to give you a lot of backstory. It's very important to understand, folks. You got a county sheriff that's now looking at two lawsuits. What's he going to do under the pressure? To watch past episodes and view exclusive reports on the Kootenai County political power players, again, go to our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. There's also a link pinned to the top of the comments for 15% off those midday squares, chocolate peanut butter snack. No, the cookie dough's our favorite. Cookie dough. So you got to get yours, and then next Wednesday at 7 p.m., you got your snacks ready to go when you're watching with us. You can also go to the website for our podcast. And for that, listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcast shows. I know we're already looking forward to seeing you next week.
I want to give a huge shout out to my two buds that I have recently become friends with. You guys met me last week for some fine refreshments. I appreciate you guys. Folks, be in prayer for Mickey. Mickey is not doing well. He could use your prayers along with Todd and Ron. Ron is still recovering, needs your prayers. Now, be strong and of good courage. Talk to those that you don't necessarily want to talk to. Articulate your beliefs. Trust in God. See you all next week. God bless.